Hello friends, welcome to the second lecture in this series on the play The Merchant of Venice. So in this lecture we are going to talk about Elizabethan theatre and Shakespeare. In the first lecture I introduced you to the genre drama, and we saw how drama is looked upon as a different genre than other genres. How is it different? What are the elements of drama and how many various types of drama are there? All right. So in this lecture, we are going to talk about Elizabethan theatre and William Shakespeare. All right. So after this little bit of historical and social background of the age, we'll start discussing our play, The Merchant of Venice. So let us first understand the Elizabethan theatre. It was the theatre of Elizabethan age was named, it is called Elizabethan theatre because of Queen Elizabeth, who was ruling England at that time. And she ruled England for a long time, and everyone believes that that period of Elizabeth's rule is considered one of the best periods in English history. It's called the golden period of English history. So it was very different from the plays in Elizabethan age were very different from the theme, from the plays of medieval ages, Middle Ages, which were based on religious themes, which were all based on religious themes, themes of Christianity, Christ. So these plays started deviating a little bit from those themes. For the first time, professional actors came into trend in Elizabethan age. First theatre was established in England in 1576. Drama became something simply to entertain people, right? So before Elizabethan age, drama was a means to educate people, to make people aware of Christianity, of their religious beliefs, and it used to be radical sometimes in its form, but in Elizabethan age, it became a means of entertainment. So it broke free from its typical rigid phase, which was to teach people about Christianity and about Jesus Christ, telling them stories of miracles and all that. The next point is dancing and acting companies came into being, and earlier they had to tour from place to place to show their plays, to perform. But now, for the first time, there were some companies which came into being, and they stayed in one place. They did not have to tour. They were established in one place, and they were plays performed in a fixed place on a fixed time and on regular basis. So people could know what is happening where, which play is being staged where, which was not the case before this period, because nobody knew, because companies used to travel and they used to move from one place to another, and they used to show their performances. Much like our street plays kind of thing. Now the plays for all social classes started to come and on stage, and there were themes other than religion also, as we have already talked about it. Elizabethan England. Now let's understand the society of England a little bit. Elizabethan England was a place of explosive economic growth as well as growing interest in foreign cultures. So it fueled people's interest in theatre. People's interest in theatre started to grow because in Elizabethan age, a lot of money was coming. There was economic growth. And it provided money, it provided capital for the building of permanent open-air theatres in London in 1580s and 90s. So which actually gave plays a regular home, as I told you, that earlier there were no regular plays, there were no fixed established plays for theatres, so there were no theatres for plays to happen, for plays to be performed. So now it started happening in England. Despite opposition from those who feared that the theatre was immoral, a particular a section of society was against it because they believed theatre and plays are immoral and they teach bad things, and large gatherings of people in one place would reignite the plague. That in that time also, like what we are facing now, the huge pandemic, COVID, in those times also there used to be plagues and there used to be pandemics, and people used to fear mass gatherings. So that was also one fear related to establishment of theatres. But still, a prosperous and energetic society, they flocked to see the plays that were now performed on a regular and predictable basis. Now the people of England knew that plays are being performed at a particular place. One of the reasons Elizabethan theatre was so successful was that it was also enjoyed and patronized by the Queen. So that's a very important factor. She never visited the theatre herself, but then she was known to have some invited companies or of actors to perform at court. It is shown by this extract from government records in 1572. Some kind of quote is there to the Lord Chamberlain's players at Whitehall, 25th February 1572, and they performed a play at the court. Now, audiences of Elizabethan plays theatre were both courtiers and commoners. The most famous theatre was the Globe Theatre, which was opened for business in 1599. Okay, so it was owned by some members of the professional acting company, which was known as Chamberlain's Men. William Shakespeare was also one of the members of this company. So he was also one of the investors, owners of this theatre, very famous theatre, the Globe Theatre. Now let's talk about William Shakespeare. William Shakespeare came into the scene. Of course, he needs no introduction, and he came into the scene around the last part, the fag end of 16th century. Most celebrated, one of the most celebrated authors in any language. He was born in Stratford upon Avon in 1564, but it was not until 1592 that he became known in theatre circles. Little information about his education is available. We don't know about his school education. In fact, some critics have called his years 1585 to 1592, all these years are called lost years because very little information about Shakespeare's life is available in these years. What was he doing where? What was happening? Where was he? Nobody knows. So these years are called lost years. He married 26-year-old Anne Hathaway when he was 18 years old, and he began as an actor in London. He joined Chamberlain's Men, the theatre company, and then he became popular, important member of the Globe Theatre's permanent staff. And this position he held throughout his writing career. He produced on average 2 plays every year. He wrote 37 plays in all. And the plays are usually divided into 4 groups. They illustrate the broad categories of Elizabethan theatre in general. These categories were comedies, romances, histories, and tragedies. So these are the 4 types of categories, 4 types of plays that Shakespeare wrote. These works, like many of the period, they combine wordplay and in-joke references to the contemporary politics. There are stories of love, there are dark deeds of revenge, murder, historical events, historical fiction, some kind of jingoism also. So now let's talk about The Merchant of Venice. The Merchant of Venice, the setting of this play is 16th century Venice, which is a city in Italy. Okay, it was written between 1596 to 1600, and during Queen Elizabeth's reign, she was ruling England at the time. She stayed in power for a long time, I told you. She was basically, a woman doing a man's job in that society. She was not following any conventions which were thrust upon the women of that society. So she remained unmarried. She had no children. And that's why the image of Queen Elizabeth is that of a very, very powerful, very, dominating, very bold queen. And this kind of image of women is also reflected in Shakespeare's plays a little bit. His women are very powerful. They are bold heroines. They're dominating, and they sometimes overshadow their male counterparts in plays. In fact, some critics have said, one critic has said that Shakespeare's plays have no heroes, but only heroines. Okay, then there is a theme of anti-Semitism in this play. Anti-Semitism means hatred for Jews, the sentiment which is against the Jews. So Shylock in this play, who's a main character, is a Jew, and a little bit of anti-Semitism we should know before we start the play. See, Jews have suffered a lot of persecutions on account of them being Jews, on account of their religion, and it started 1500 years ago. Romans chased the Jews out of Israel because they were not Catholic. So that is what happened. And in fact, some people believed for a long time Christians had this belief that Jews were responsible for the death of Jesus Christ. So it originates from that time. Throughout the history, Jews have suffered, they've frequently been prevented from doing certain businesses or owning land. So few money-making options were available to them. They were not allowed to lend money and charge interest on it, sometimes called usury. Christians were not allowed. Christians were forbidden the charging of interest by the New Testament. So they were not allowed. They considered usury as sinful. And now public perception of the Jews was not helped by the fact that many Jews became rich through money lending business. Now they were not allowed to pursue or follow certain other businesses, so they adopted money lending as their main profession. So they became very rich. They earned a lot of money by this business. In addition, many Christians believe that Jews were responsible. I told you already. Now, this is one reason of the enmity between Christians and Jews. There is a section in Bible, there are sections which show Jews as having key role in his death. Many of Shakespeare's audience, they would have also been familiar with passion plays. Now, what were passion plays? These were a violent depiction of Jesus's crucifixion, and they vehemently blamed Jews for his death. Many of Shakespeare's contemporaries would have also been aware of the legend of little Saint Hugh. Now, this story is there was a child crucified by a Jew in 1255. This boy was indeed found dead, and a Jew, under threat of torture, he confessed the murder. Now, Henry III, who was ruling England at the time, he excavated the scandal by arresting 90 Jews, and he's sending them to Tower of London. 18 of them were killed. So of course, after sending them to jail, the Tower of London, the king confiscated their money and their property. Subsequently, Edward I expelled all Jews from England in 1290. So 300 Jews were arrested, they were executed in the Tower of London, and thousands were more elsewhere in the country. Jews were not officially allowed back in England till 1655. A date considerably after Shakespeare's death. However, Jews were allowed to stay if they pretended to be Christians. So this was the situation. Shakespeare's audience would definitely have been aware of Dr. Lopez also, who was Queen Elizabeth's doctor, who tried to poison Queen Elizabeth. Now, there was another play, The Jew of Malta, written by one of Shakespeare's contemporaries, Marlowe, Christopher Marlowe, and that play also depicts one of the protagonists of the play is a Jew who's shown to be very barbaric and cruel. In 1965, Vatican officially declared that Jews were not responsible for Jesus' death. But by that time, a lot of damage had been done, and Jews had suffered a lot on account of their religion. Now, Nazism in the modern world is the most extreme example of anti-Semitism, the theme, the hatred for Jews. In recent history, during the Holocaust, estimated 5 to 9 million Jews were killed. Anti-Jewish discrimination began in 1935 with the Nuremberg laws. It prevented Jews from marrying Germans. We all know about Hitler's hatred for Jews. So, however, in Shakespeare's time, Jews were not only people to fear in England. They were more like boogie monsters that could be held up as ready-made villains, in the same way that Hollywood movies use Russians and, because there was Cold War between America and Russia. So now let's talk about Venice a little bit. Shakespeare sets his play in Venice because it's a romantic location. Despite the concern with Shylock's villainy, it's actually a love story. So for love story, a romantic location is an ideal place. Again, given the legal absence of Jews from England, because Jews were banished from England, this is a place where Jews were allowed. So that is why also maybe he has chosen Venice as the setting. Venice also was famous for trading and likely setting for rich merchants. So Shakespeare loved to show off his classical learning. So he wanted to show his knowledge of Europe, Italy, and all that. So maybe that's why also he chose Venice as the setting of the play. So one, it is romantic. Second, it's Jews were not allowed in England, and thirdly, because it was a center for tradesmen. Finally, Shakespeare could not set his play in France or Spain because England was at constant war with these two countries. So this was a little bit of background about the play, about Elizabethan age, Elizabethan Theatre, William Shakespeare, and the play, The Merchant of Venice. So this was the background. Now, keeping all these points in mind, we shall start discussing the play in the next lecture. Thank you.